Okay, moving on to the next item. Is the discussion about the unmanned aerial system. Okay, so the next item is the presentation by the San Jose Police Department of the unmanned aerial system draft policy. Angelique Gaeta will assist, and Tim Porter will give a review of the recommendations.
If we could just have a second to locate the officers that we're going to do.
Right, because we are also drafted our own letter, which there's a whole big long discussion to go on right here. So I want to hear what the police have to say for a few minutes, but we have our own letter that we worked on, and we had an ad hoc task force that drafted a letter. You all got a copy of it. And then yesterday we got an update to it with significant changes here and there. We created a PowerPoint presentation to go through these changes, and then we were advised that since it has draft language in it, we cannot show the PowerPoint presentation. And so for the next 2 hours, or next hour, I will be going by my paper copy here and discussing things. So it'll be an interesting evening.
Are we displaying the Word document on the...
Do we have a means to do so?
We have a...
So can we hold
on. I can go upstairs and make a copy of this. Let me finish this.
Okay. Okay, so he will get us a copy of our original draft, this March draft that we circulated.
Yeah, Commissioner, I just want to remind
please
you.
clarify us on this.
I just want to remind you that I forwarded you all a copy of this. All of you should have received it.
Did not.
I usually make copies here, but I know that you're not receiving any emails?
Nothing.
I'm not getting any bounce backs from you. So I'm not sure what to tell you. I'll have to look at that, but that's strange.
This would have occurred in February, so don't think anytime recent. This was at least a couple of weeks ago.
But there was an update as well, because I received everything that you sent, a block of...
I think we're just having a problem with Commissioner Polstead.
I have seen.
I have to add you to the email list. That's why you didn't receive it.
I did not receive it.
But that's good to know that you're not receiving it, Commissioner Polstead. Otherwise, I usually get a bounce back that says not getting it or wasn't able to deliver. I haven't received that at all, so otherwise I'm going to contact you.
Check your spam trap, it might be going there.
So we're going to finish this presentation, and I'm going to go upstairs and make a copy of what was sent to all of you. Did anybody bring a copy of what was sent to you? No. Okay, there's at least one copy. So 2 copies. So that's actually the reason that we sent it to you. So, but I always do the courtesy of making extra copies. So if you do get them and you all receive them, please bring them with you. So, but I'm going to go upstairs and make copies as soon as we're done with this.
Good evening. I'm Captain Tim Porter, San Jose Police Department, and I run the Special Operations Division for about 3 more days. Captain Knox will be taking over this program after I transfer. Lieutenant Dwyer, he's the lieutenant for the bomb unit, which is one of his responsibilities. And Sergeant Wedge is our bomb expert, or subject matter expert, and he runs the bomb unit. The purpose of this presentation is to explain the unmanned aerial system background, kind of have a summary of the community feedback that we've received from the 3 meetings we provided for the public, the proposed policies and procedures, which the community did have some input on, and then explain the pilot program if this is approved. This was originally acquired for the bomb squad. And then I'm going to have Sergeant Wedge explain what a common bomb call-out or incident is, and he can explain the safety of his personnel and the situational awareness when we have a bomb incident.
So normally in a bomb call situation, with kind of to back up the way it comes to us is we are not a unit that's actively out there looking for IEDs or suspicious packages. Usually it's you, the citizens, that see something, call the police, the patrol units will respond. They in fact will kind of vet it to see if it's something that makes them uncomfortable, and if it is, then the call will come to us and we will respond. So we are pretty much 100% what we would call a reactive unit. We don't go out looking for these things. They tend to call us to go out and find these things. We like to use robots, ground robots, other means to find these things and deal with them remotely if we can. The reason for that is officer safety. As a last resort, we will put a guy or a gal in a bomb suit and go downrange and actually render the device safe, but we like to do that remotely if we can, and it's for safety. And so we have situations where devices are found that either a ground-operated robot cannot get to them, and so this UAS would allow us to be able to access areas that we cannot get to with our normal robots that we have, as well as allow us to have good awareness. A lot of times the size of the device is indicative of how much explosives you can put into it. So that also starts to tell us how big our perimeter needs to be, whether we can shelter in place, meaning we don't have to disrupt an entire business downtown. They can continue to work. So it gives us a lot of information on what it is, what's the best way to render that safe. And that's how we would use this, which we've said before in the box.
And it's not currently in use, and I want to impress that it hasn't been used in any incident. The only time it's been used is just to make sure it works. That's the only time it's been used. This is the model name of the UAS. You can go out and buy this at the store. You don't need any special license. You can have your sons go out, give that right amount of money, they can buy this. It weighs 1.5 pounds. It's 1.5 feet tall, 3 feet wide. It has a GoPro camera that provides a video feed to the device that the bomb units have, a laptop or a tablet. Batteries last for about 15 minutes if there's no wind, and this cannot operate in any wind over 5 miles an hour. There's a picture there. You can see the electrical outlet and the tape measure, and the thing hanging underneath it is the GoPro.
And we've seen this several times, so can we move forward because we have a lot to go through?
No, but I'm talking.
Okay, thank you.
The positive feedback we've received from the 3 community meetings is they understand it increases safety of the officers and the public. It would aid us in addressing critical incidents involving threat to human life, and that they want accountability and transparency. And some of the concerns is mission creep, which if you go outside the boundaries, for instance, if you say, hey, that worked well on this, maybe we can do something else with that. We have strict usage of this to prevent mission creep. Not going to use it for surveillance at all, and we do not record anything or take photos, no video. And people say, wait, when you have a GoPro, you do record. That's what it does, record. But we took the chip out, so it's a direct feed. There's nothing being recorded, and there's nothing being recorded on the laptop or the tablet device. Like I said, narrowly defined uses, explosive device, emergency situations like an active shooter, or a barricade situation where somebody's armed. And then all flights of the UAS will be approved by a command officer, and that's a lieutenant and above. The UAS will be logged and subject to audit. There's 2 different ways. They're going to fill out a single incident form when they do use it, and then our computer-aided dispatch, when anything from a barking dog to a homicide, lists everything that's in the event, everything that comes on the radio, that they will have to say when it's used, like control, we're using the UAS, that will be marked in the event. So you can take the personal paperwork and the computer-aided dispatch, and you're going to see that if we used it 10 times, there should be 10 forms, and there should be 10 events that can be printed out very easily from the computer-aided dispatch. The locket will fill out special reason why we used it, location, duration, the identity of the pilot, and the identity of the authorizing command officer, and that will be logged on the CAT event and their form. Flights are only legitimate public safety missions, training, and for training, it'll only be used on city property. It won't be going around the city using this thing. It'll be on city property, where a large piece of property where it can be used, and for demonstration purposes. Like I mentioned earlier, only for real-time information. It's not going to record or store any images. Prohibited uses, we're not going to use it for surveillance, not recording, doesn't have any weapons, or you can't put any weapons on it. We're not going to, it can't fit any acoustical devices, imagers, biometric identification, or electronic noses. And I will say that our proposed use of this is stricter than ACLU's recommendation in their report. Proposed 1 year, this is a pilot program, 1 year of usage, and then determine was it useful or not. The program begins when FAA requirements are, when they decide what they are, and that's a certificate or authorization, or it might be so small that there's just a license you have to fill out. And the FAA probably won't have that program really done until late 2016, so it's our guess that if this is approved, we would start the program in the year 2017. If we qualify for the, what's the term, the hobbyist category?
Yeah, it's a streamlined process. Basically, the FAA is still working this out, but there are large drones and smaller drones, and once they set those guidelines and those rules or those standard operating procedure requirements, this UAS that we have made fit into what's considered by the FAA and the government as a very small group. So it would be subject to different rules and or requirements.
Oh, that's the micro drone. That's less than 4.4 pounds is being considered. So we might be able to fall in that category without having to go through the full-blown process of a certificate of authorization. And then we still need public review and comment, and regulations will be finalized in 2016 or 17.
Okay, thank you. So,
So I guess now, if there's any questions for me to do that, I'm gonna go upstairs and make copies and get back them. And then you can start the discussion.
I guess I was trying to decide if we wanted to start our discussion now, or do we want to have public comment first? Does the public want to comment on what we've heard? Maybe we do public comment while you go and get your papers.
That sounds good.
Good idea.
Yeah. So you go ahead and, are you going to project the thing, or hand paper copies out to us?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to project our draft, or are you going to hand out paper copies for us?
Oh, well, I'm gonna make the copies, trying to do other things and transmit and come back and do more. Let's just work with the paper copies then.
Okay, so then the audience won't know what we're doing, but,
I'll give them paper copies.
okay. So I guess we'll do public comment while we're going up there, so let me start. Realize that we do want to get back to what we're doing here, so short public comments, please. Ethan? Yes, again, 2 minutes or more. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I would just like, if this process as we're going, can you be able to describe in the future your ACLU policy? Can you learn to describe the live video and the public record questions that will arise? And basically just the questions that citizens have about this subject. Can there be a policy that you can create? I've been trying to create a policy. Can you, your policy that you have within you, will that be available to the public one day, is my question. Please allow citizens to be able to ask questions And please, I can really hope that you can learn to be honest with your answers. You really need honesty. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, James Murray.
I have a few comments. I think the militarization of the police in this country is a grave threat to democracy. The officer said there'll be no mission creep. Well, Obama was elected promising to end the war in Iraq. What do we have now? More wars everywhere. I'm all for officer safety, but what about citizen safety? Ask Michael Brown or Amadou Diallo. UAS, just call it a drone, all right? And you say, oh, this is a very limited thing, it can't do much. Well, technology is updated all the time. Pretty soon it'll be able to see through walls. And don't tell me that it's not making recordings, because it's sending the images to a link on the ground, and they're recording everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Sharat Lynn.
Yes, I just wanted to, to thank this body for having the public hearings, but I just wanted to note that the kind of feedback that we got from those public hearings were based upon the police department making a presentation and then asking for questions from the audience, and that's basically what it was most of the people from the public were, wanted to know more about what this program was all about. And so those public meetings did not really get the kind of feedback that I would think we should be seeking if we really want to, get public opinion on the full implications of it. I mean, it takes some time for it to sink in. As far as it seems now that the mission of this thing is shifting, because originally it was a number of things, including the bomb squad, and now it seems to be primarily bomb squad, and that is the one thing that I felt it's not really, if you really stop and think about it, that, suppose there's a crowd or a marketplace, somebody leaves a backpack in a corner, it's not going to be something that you need a drone to examine. They're not going to put it on a rooftop because that's not where the crowds are. And so in my view, the primary use of a drone of this type is really search and rescue. And so I see that kind of utility. But then I would pose the question that if search and rescue is a primary use of the UAV, then instead of assigning it to the police department, assign it to the fire department or to the search and rescue unit. And the other thing is that, although I would prefer that we not have drones at all, but if we do decide to go ahead with the drone, before the program is activated, please allow the City Council to pass an ordinance that circumscribes the use of this device. Thank you.
That's what we're trying to do. Thank you. Okay, Charlotte Casey.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you so much for hosting the meetings. I've attended 2 out of 3 of the meetings, and it's been very valuable to hear from the police department, and especially tonight to hear that the policy considerations that they have laid out are within the guidelines that the ACLU is urging for these kinds of surveillance equipment. I would like to ask you tonight to table this whole issue until we do have such an ordinance for surveillance and community safety in place. I think this whole thing got started without a prior analysis of how effective it would be, what the need was, and cost effectiveness and consideration for privacy rights. So it was kind of starting backward and going retroactively. It would be great to have the community ordinance in place first and then launch the test period for the drone. Thank you.
A question, yes, Dan.
Can I ask a clarifying question on the procedure for bomb? One of the comments from the audience made it sound like this would be used over people around a bomb. I think that you guys would have procedure that clears and evacuates an area so there's nobody around, so there's no public around near a bomb, potential bomb device. And in that case, it still would be useful to determine the size and potential impact that you would have. Is that not correct?
That is absolutely correct,
Okay.
yeah. One of the first things you want to do is evacuate the area.
Yep. So I just want to make sure that the comment from the audience was that it would be over people in danger. I don't see that as the situation. You would clear it in case of it would happen, then you would be able to bring it in and evaluate at that point in time.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
And to clarify that too, for Brad, that the FAA's rules and recommendations is don't fly over crowds. So we would not, it wouldn't be used for demonstration or anything like that. And so I want to make that clear too. We did have a slide with a lot of FAA regulations, but one is not to fly over crowds.
Okay. Okay, Karim Kawaji? Kawaji. Very close.
Good evening. I'm from the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, and we are all for an ordinance that will be passed by City Council. We're very pleased that the San Jose Police Department followed our recommendations, and this is all great. It's all good that it's not going to be used for surveillance, for weapons, for recording images. However, the police department mentioned that whatever is recorded is subject to an audit, and who's going to audit that? Is it the public? Is it within the police department? Or I would just like to get clarification on that. That's it.
That's one of the topics for our thing. Okay, Juan. All right, but wait, first, question for him? Or question, let me see, any more public comment?
Clarification.
Okay, so
on
then, Juan first.
So I think the clarification I saw, and I think I mentioned is the images, the live feed will not be recorded, and what will be logged are simply instances of usage. And so what would be audited are the records of usage as opposed to someone reviewing video that was recorded. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I think we're not going to record anything. So I don't think there's anything to review because there will be no record of recordings. The things that will be recorded is when was it used, what was it used for, who used it, and who approved it.
Can we ask the member of the ACLU to clarify his final statement? I think there's some confusion around auditing records or what is recorded. Could you clarify, please? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yes, sure. So basically,
Please come up, please.
So the question I had is, let's see if there's an abuse of this policy, if these rules here are not followed, and the auditor finds that this is happening, who is the auditor here? Is it somebody from within the police department? Is it you? Is it somebody from the public? Like, who has access to this information?
Okay, and that is one of the issues that we are addressing tonight, so stick around.
Okay.
But not the recordings, that's clear, that's everyone, I
It'll
think.
be the use of the thing.
Understood.
So, let me start my discussion now, so, what?
Comment.
Well, were you gonna make a very quick comment first, or,
I want to get some clarification.
okay, clarification?
All right, so, I mean, next to the last slide, I brought this issue up before. At the end of the year, you're gonna have a pilot program at the end of the year. I don't see anything you've addressed in here is how you're gonna evaluate the effectiveness of your program if you don't use it in some kind of a training scenario or something like metrics. Okay, you could conceivably come back at the end of the year and all your bomb threats or usage of this device was at night when you couldn't use it. So now at the end of the year, you're going to come back and say, well, we had this thing for a year and we couldn't use it for anything. So I brought this up before, so why wouldn't you have something in here, some kind of a plan for your pilot program that says you're going to have training missions that are going to contains certain things for scenarios and all that. You're gonna monitor those and collect data on them, and that's what you're gonna report back to us.
We haven't come up with a format yet because we're so close to this, but, you know, we have the basic things that we're recording. And primarily, Sergeant Wedge would go off of his experience and his operator's experience and say, you know, basically based on these incidents that they used it, was it helpful? Did it work? Did it put people, you know, remove them from the danger of the blast zone? So it's just going to be commonalities like that that we're going to use. And you're right, we can't use that at night. And we might get this when it's up and running. If it does, we might use it one time in a year. We might use it 20. We have no idea.
Okay, so I want to say that I want to thank everybody for the process. We've had a meeting here. There's a presentation to the council, to the commission in November. Then we hosted 3 public meetings. We collected data through an informal survey, and then we had an ad hoc, at our last meeting we had the discussion of this thing and appointed an ad hoc committee consisting of Gary, David, Norma, Juan, and I. We met and reviewed as much data as we could remember and drafted a recommendation, a draft letter. We refined it, we sent it to Dave Dearborn for vetting. He then forwarded it to everybody here. You will have a paper copy of it in a few minutes. I have an electronic copy, but I'm told I cannot project it since it is a draft version and they don't want the draft version projected until it is approved. Or then as of yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah. It was yesterday. Yesterday, we got from staff an update, recommended updates to this thing, which many of them are, in my opinion, are okay, but when you look at them all, it's a lot. They kept my name on it. They kept the "Dear Sir" at the beginning, and everything else is rearranged word test. Many of them are fine, but there are also some significant points that we wanted to bring before the commission here, because I want to get your feedback on this thing. Let me finish my talk here, because what we're going to go through is a number of key points here, and then the ad hoc committee will reconvene one more time and make our edits, final edits to this document. Whether we accept the ones from the city or write our own letter, that will be our policy. At least that's what I'm seeing. I'm used to having a PowerPoint up here, so I don't have to do hand waving here. So I'm having a hard time here, and I don't want hands raising all the time. So
can we have the ad hoc meeting in person and so we're all in the same room?
Then we had them. We were all in the same. We are all.
Your next meeting.
We will. Yes, we will do that again.
You know, I have a question. When the officers were here, when they initially gave us the slide, that was a draft. That was a proposal that we were working on. So what is the difference between that and what we've done as the ad hoc?
So so the complaint is not the letter that we have, that we sent out as a draft. It is the edits from staff with the comments saying, what are these things? Is there any reason why I can't project this thing? You're the one that made the edits, right?
There's pretty client comments in the document, so they're protected. If you want to wait until Ernest gets here with the draft that you sent out before it was touched by any city staff, I would recommend that you do that. But what you're looking to project is the one with the edits from city staff, and you can't do that.
Okay, so but those edits from the city staff are what we want to talk about, because that is the main issue.
So I'm sorry, could I speak? So I know that, so the ad hoc committee met after the last community meeting and drafted a set of recommendations to run by you tonight. And my understanding is Ernest is printing copies of that. And the city manager's office suggested some edits to what the ad hoc committee created, and it's my understanding that we can reference those edits but not display it. So, for example, we didn't use the word drone in one section. The city manager's office suggests inserting also known as a drone or something to that effect. Basically, there are suggestions that they made. So we're going to have a document that that ad hoc committee created and that we're all going to look at. And then I think that, Larry, you will reference where we might make an edit, and then we will decide whether or not to do so. And then I think it's premature, personally, I think it's premature to start planning for another ad hoc meeting. I think we need to have this discussion and then figure out, oh, we're in agreement and we can move forward, or, oh no, we need an ad hoc meeting. I think we should just go through the process.
I'll get the discussion tonight.
Yeah.
Can I make a recommendation?
Okay, can you use the microphone so I can hear?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I would just disregard all the comments that you got from the city staff. And I would start with your draft that everybody received a copy of, and I would have somebody, after you go through your discussion of whether or not those conditions or limitations or restrictions are acceptable to the group, I would have somebody from the group make a motion on what conditions you would like to recommend that the PISFIS committee and or the city council consider, and then vote on that motion. So you don't have to worry about anything that came from the city staff. These were comments that were looked at with the city attorney's office and our office to try and help guide the process and get an understanding of what the commission wanted to do and to put it in terms that the council could actually move forward. But at this point, I would just rely on your report that you sent out to the group and go down the items line by line and make a motion on whether those should be included in what goes forward to the committee and the council.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Nick, you have something?
Oh, I think it's a very good suggestion. I think it's consistent with what most of us have seen. And Cheetah, I think I had another comment, but that's enough.
Okay, David.
What was presented tonight is very similar, very, very similar to what was brought to us and that we brought to the city. Yes, there are many ways to say it, many ways to format it, many ways to spell it and punctuate it, and a language that...
And we're not going to worry about that. There are a few...
But the point is, this document is very much akin to what the police brought to us and how they responded to public comment. And I think I think we're very close together. And that any resolution of the commission document, any finalization of the commission document does not have to be terribly complicated. And I think her suggestion was well taken.
Yeah, I also agree. I think we were just trying to accommodate suggestions made by the city manager's office and it sounds like the city attorney. Shoot, I wanted to make sure. One major change that I considered major was the city manager's suggestion that the Neighbors Commission forward a copy or seek that this committee, what's the committee name? Fire or public safety?
Public safety, finance,
there you go.
Strategic.
So I was hoping that maybe you could provide insight into why we would even insert that committee. And the reason is the Neighbors Commission will provide input to the City Council. And even if there is a subset of the City Council that is a committee, I think that's outside our scope.
Thank you for the question. The reason we're before the commission is because the council directed this issue to go before the Public Safety, Strategic Finance, Strategic Support Committee, and they in turn directed the staff to bring it here. So the process is for you to come up with some feedback and recommendations, forward them to the PISFIS committee, and then the committee will decide whether or not to forward those on to the city council.
And so the reason I asked that is that would be similar to code enforcement saying, please bring this to the Neighbors Commission make a recommendation to code enforcement, and then we'll take it to the council. And so I think I appreciate the way that the process played out, but in the end, we make our recommendation to the city council.
You can frame your report however you'd like. Your report is going to the PIS committee, and the committee will decide whether or not it goes forward to the council. It's just the process that was directed to the staff.
So,
You can address it to whoever you'd like.
Okay, let me start this process, and without any paper copies, this is going to be a little tricky, but right at the very beginning, do we use the word drone or not? We carefully avoided the use of the word drone, and you added it in, so do you want it in there?
You can draft the report however you like. We were trying to keep it as simple as possible for the council and the committee to digest.
Do we want to
You
have
can
the
ignore
word
all
drone?
of our comments.
We could also know that.
Okay, keep it in.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, it should be in.
I would not recommend that you go through our edits one by one. I would recommend you go through the bullet points.
The question's about
Okay, on the first letter here, you crossed out and changed. Okay, the second letter, I was not planning to do word by word or line by line. I have about 10 points to raise here, so let me go through them. One of them is, at several of the meetings, somebody passed in to the police a petition with 1,600 signatures. We never got that petition. You got the petition. So I had a line in here just acknowledging that there was a petition, but we never saw it. So the question is, if we reference it, do we include it, or do we just say that we know there was one, or I'm happy to put it in, take it out? Should we even mention it? Yes?
I think it was public knowledge, because it was mentioned at several of the meetings and outreach meetings. And there may have been discussion between the petitioners and the city outside of us. We mentioned the major concerns. I think the police have addressed that, the city's addressed that. If they want to petition, I would suggest that it be outside that letter, other than just to mention that it was. If there's a requirement that we have to go into great detail about that, there's not, then leave it as a reference or take it out.
Could you read it, just for clarity's sake, since we don't all have anything? I remember reading it, but I don't remember the exact language.
I just said that the community also the commission also received community input by email, online surveys, change it to feedback, and a petition. Just saying that there was a petition. I guess we didn't receive it. Just we have.
It was kind of anecdotal. It was reported, I think it was by the ACLU representative. So it was at the meeting, at the open meeting, it was reported anecdotal that had been furnished. I think that's sufficient.
Okay, we will craft the wording on that.
Do we have sufficient background on what was asked or what knowledge was given to individuals prior to the petition? Because if it was just you oppose drones, that's very different from getting educated from what the uses were and then asking it again on the petition. And so I'm just kind of concerned that we don't know any background on what the petition asked, what the information was. I never saw it either.
I heard that there was one. I was just trying to admit that we heard that there was. I'll be glad. We will craft wording on that. So we have some important issues to talk about, though, too. So some of them are conditions of the use. This is one of the important points here. Is who actually is responsible for the drone? Is it a unit, or is it a individual selected by the chief to be responsible for it? I guess I'm kind of thinking of like when a family gets a pet dog, and you say, okay, Sally, you will feed the dog every day, or the kids will feed the dog, and if the kids feed the dog goes hungry. So if you say a person feeds the dog gets fed. That's where I'm going here. Do you have an individual, or will it be a unit that's responsible?
Well, the unit, the bomb unit, there's a full-time sergeant and a full-time officer.
Right.
They are responsible for that, and it's under law.
So the unit is one person?
It's a bomb unit because there's 12 collateral people. They work in other areas, so it's big enough to be called a unit.
Yeah.
But the full-time sergeant and officer are responsible for the maintenance and where it's kept and how it's kept.
So that's what we're asking then. Can we say that the sergeant of the bomb unit will be responsible for it?
Yes.
Okay, I'm happy with that, thank you. We say that the UAS will be operated in accordance with all city, state, and federal laws. And we had the word "and constitutional guarantees," and that was recommended to be removed. Do we feel necessary to add constitutional guarantees, or are federal laws sufficient? I mean, I kind of like saying I kind of like the analogy of the Constitution. I like the sound of it,
But it's still the same.
Yeah, because the
Sort of.
laws are supposed to be in accordance with the
Yeah.
Constitution.
They should be. So you're happy to accept it?
Federal and state law.
Okay, I'm gonna make one more recommendation. When you're talking about how to scribe the report, maybe you could do that with your ad hoc committee outside of this commission. We've got 4 officers here at different ranks, so maybe what we could do is, as you go down your list, pull out the questions that you have for them on those items, and then we can let them go and you guys can talk about how
Well, we're
to.
going to be done within an hour no matter what anyhow, so we're working as fast as
I think
we can.
No, I
the
understand.
process is the process. We have to just walk through. The chair runs the process.
No, I
Please.
understand, I'm just making the
That's all.
recommendation that you've got 4 sworn personnel
And I
here.
appreciate it, and I'm trying to get the questions in order, and if I'd had my PowerPoint, I would have been easier at this. Juan, yes.
So Larry, I mean, dear Chair, what I had heard earlier is that we could just disregard the suggested edits made by the city manager's office, and we're kind of going through them. And so I also feel like if we just focus on the product that the ad hoc committee created, and if we summarize it, and then once we all get a copy, if we all review it, I think that there may not actually be any questions for the sworn officer.
Let me just go through my questions here at this point. I hear you. I don't have my questions in order. I have them in order, I don't have specific ones. So let me do this here. So, you've been describing all along bomb disposal. Everybody seems to be happy with that. You talk about active shooter, and then you talk about exigent situations. Now, exigent situations has been combined with active shooters, fine, no problem with that. I've always been wondering how, it seemed like active shooter was an exigent situation. When there is an exigent situation, it's not very often, isn't it? I mean, that's very rare. You have the 110 bombs per year, but how many active shooters per year do you have?
Well, fortunately, we had 0, but we do have a fair amount of barricade situation where someone's in their house drunk or under the influence of drugs, and we would consider that an exigent circumstance because we can probably clear the area and see where to put officers in safer spots, and then people don't have to hang around and run around backyards and know something to drive around on.
So we had a hard time amongst our ad hoc committee trying to figure out what that is, because if we make it too general, then it opens up the door and it can be used for almost anything as an exigent situation. So we recommended wording that when you have an exigent situation, that it would be the police chief that would be the one to authorize it, and the chief would alert the city council within 5 days, report to the city council within 5 days saying that it was used for this purpose. And we added wording that we, the neighborhoods commission, would be alerted because the public wants to know what's going on. And we added the word that the independent police auditor would be alerted. I ran into her by random chance this morning, and I mentioned to her that we added this line and that the staff had recommended deleting it, and she very much liked the line and wanted it in there. So I definitely think we need to have the independent auditor notified whenever there is an exigent situation. Now, I was on the County Parks Commission for 8 years, a decade ago, and every so often there's an exigent situation there. Something unusual happens. There was a shooting at some park, or somebody did something weird. The commission, we were all notified of it, just so that when the public asked us what was going on, we would be able to have enough knowledge to not be blindsided by it and to be able to tell the truth here. And so we represent the community, and the community is very worried about the drone flying around looking at everything. And so if it's a bomb situation, it'll be obvious, but if it's an exigent situation, I think we should be notified. So I'm trying to get your feedback on that one. So, okay, you had your hand up.
David, your home District 6 again. I think there's a body of experience, policy, and operating procedures that cover the situation you're describing. And it may already include notification of superior officers, people at the city, and maybe the independent auditor. And if that's the case, it's something we should not wordsmith to death and fret about. But we don't know that. I think what we're dealing with is what we don't know.
So is there a city policy on who gets notified in an exigent situation?
Because the bomb unit was in charge of that drone, they would get called. It would be something large enough for the special operations unit to come out, the SWAT team, collateral response team. And so it would be a time for somebody in the middle of the night, get out of bed, go down and get it. And if they're involved, that means special operations involved. Then there's notifications all the way up to the chief of police. And if it's something major, the city manager will get above that, then the chief will notify the city manager. And so there is a notification process. There will be every time this is going to be used, because if it's going to be used, it's going to be a very serious incident.
And I'm not asking you to be waking up at 5 in the morning to be told that. I'm just saying it's kind of a feedback, just kind of as a control, that it doesn't get used all the time. That's what I'm seeing as the public is worried about, is the mission creep. So that's what I'm trying to limit here. On.
So, if I may, then I think I just want to give a summary of what our document includes. And so the summary is that, I think David mentioned earlier, what the Neighborhoods Commission, what we recommend, the ad hoc committee recommends, is that the Neighborhoods Commission recommend the use for the bomb squad situations and for exigent circumstances, including active shooter. And what we very specifically said something that was on the presentation tonight, which is in no other surveillance, that this is a pilot period, that after 9 months.
So you're getting ahead of the line here right now. So I just want to.
Right. What I want to do is if it makes sense, give an overview of where we're going, so that we know where we're going.
Okay, so where we're going is we basically took your recommendations from, at the very beginning, we asked for straw man recommendations, and they were just fine. So we basically incorporated them almost word for word. This summary is that we were using it for bomb surveillance, bomb disposal, or whatever it is, and for the bomb squad and in exigent situations. Those are the only things. There's a pilot program. The pilot program, we recommend that it's a 1-year pilot program, but it is a pilot program. And so there's an end to it unless it is continued. And we do not, so that is one of the main points, is I do not want us to say we approve the pilot program and then we go away and never say anything ever again. And so the whole thing gets opened up. In which case we just open the door as a pilot program and then say, okay, door's open, and we walk away. I think we need to have some follow-up. There's a beginning and an end. And so what our draft here recommends is that after 9 months, you give us feedback on how the thing is working to date. So 9 months will give you some amount of time. You will do your demonstrations, you'll do your test programs, you might have used it a few times. Let us know how it worked after 9 months. Let us know how you would want to change the thing, whatever recommendations you want to change on it. So after 9 months. So because then at the end of a year, your program ends. But we have 3 months to get public feedback, to talk amongst ourselves, make recommendations to City Council that we recommend that the thing continue, or that it be terminated, depending on how things go. But the point is that we have some feedback on this thing, that it's not that we're just opening the door and saying, yes, we approve this thing for a pilot program and go away. We want to follow up on it. And then after, and also if this thing becomes a permanent program, then it just goes on forever. But if you want to make significant changes to the thing, then again, you would alert the public, alert us. We would, again, give public impact. I mean, because people are concerned about this thing. So after, yeah, you might find that it'd be great for search and rescue. Well, that would be a new purpose. We want to hear from the public and learn about that. You might learn that you want to have audio so you can listen in on, communicate with people. That is not a thing that you're doing right now, but you might find in 3 years that you want to do that. That type of something, if there's changes in the policy that we want to represent the public on these things.
And the other thing, so Larry, if I could just finish, the other part of it was, when the ad hoc committee met, what we very specifically did was try to incorporate the sentiment from the community. And so that the reason that our recommendations are very much in line with what the police department requested is because it's what we heard at community meetings, it's what we heard at neighbors commission meetings, it's what we heard via the online survey and other sources. And what we heard is that a majority of the community supports the use of the drone, I'll call it a drone, for bomb-type situations, that the majority of the community supports the use in exigent circumstances, and that for other uses, there was no clear majority sentiment, and that's consistent with, I think, what the police department requested, which is not use it for other purposes. So I just wanted to put that background in there. It's not just that we liked what we saw, it's what we heard from the community.
I went back and reread all the notes that I'd taken from all these meetings before we came up with these things. And we got, what was it, 200 and some people speak on this thing. We've gotten a lot of input. We spoke at our neighborhood associations, and we got more feedback there, and electronic feedback. You wanted to say something?
Yes, it's 8:31.
I'm hurrying, okay?
No.
Go ahead. Okay, more people, okay. We talked about, on this thing I talked about blinking lights on the thing. That was meant to be nothing more than identifying lights, you know, a little blue and red LED. I mean, you have cars driving down the street, you know that a police car is the one that's black and it has red and blue lights on it. So that's all that we're trying to make it so that you could, it was not supposed to be headlights for flying at night, so that's the comments about lights. So should be almost no wait. So it was during the 1 year, so this is the main thing, is that this is a 1 year pilot program, and we wanted to know how it is going, we want to get some feedback on it at the end of 9 months. So if we wait to the end of the year, at the end of the pilot program, then you would either continue on, in which case it's not really a pilot program, or else you stop and you put it in a box and wait for the city council to reapprove it. It might take months. That's why we're recommending 9 months, so that you would be able, you have a good chance of continuing using the thing. See, I guess some of the other issues is...
Quick question to that point.
Okay.
It was suggested that we could leave much of this as we wish, and it would be taken as suggestions to the committee. And so I don't know that there's a decision to make on it unless...
So I'm explaining, I guess, to the whole group here for your feedback on this thing too.
Yes, I think what, and this is just to kind of augment what Dave and Larry are saying, I think that he is just asking that you put a lot of consideration into that pilot program, and that is because it's not just because of us, but we think it would give to tell you the truth, I honestly don't believe there will be significant changes, but it will give us something to hold on to. It would give us some feedback on how you feel the program is going with the drone. Okay, it's not that we are trying to step on your toes and tell you what to do, because for the most part, I really, really believe it's a very, very reasonable, you're using it for reasonable causes.
I echo that. I mean, the policies that you recommended at the beginning, like I said, we basically put them all in here. They were what we wanted to see. This is what we thought you wanted to use it for. We are glad that you heard the concerns from the public and limited the policy, limited to the thing. Sorry, I'm a software engineer. I have done a lot of software engineering. If you don't exactly describe exactly what you wanted to do, you get the wrong answer out of the thing, which is why you have to specifically limit. It's very much like legal things too, where you say you shall do this, and you shall not do that. So that's why that's why aerospace engineering coming through this. That you shall not have weaponized things. You shall not have traffic license plate reading software. You shall not have facial recognition software. I mean, my stupid little my little point-and-shoot camera can recognize people's things, and it'll pop up and say, "Oh, it's her birthday today." I mean, it's amazing what software can do right now. So we don't want this drone flying by and saying, "Oh, there's Fred. Oh, yeah, there is a search warrant for him," and then zoom in on it. So this is why we're putting these limits on here. That it may sound like we're getting carried away, but electronics can do things. That's fine.
So I being part of the ad hoc committee, I think I was one of the people who definitely said we have to make sure that we outline what it should not be used for. It's not enough to just say what it should be used for. And I think we've done that, and I think that the neighbors commissioners have all seen this document, and we understand, I think that it will be a recommendation to the city council. And you know, I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to do something that we're not supposed to. The Neighbors Commission is different from other commissions. Our input goes directly to the city council. Ed Raz just showed me the document that outlines that the city council, once we recommend to them, they could choose to go to this committee. They could choose to ask the committee for feedback. But the first step is, the flow is commission recommends to council, council may seek input from other committees. And so I think our task today is just to decide, do we have, as commissioners, any questions or concerns regarding the draft that the ad hoc committee created, with the understanding that it will just be a recommendation to the city council. The city council may, for example, direct the city manager's office to revise it to make it consistent with whatever it is that they see a need to make it consistent with. So I recommend, dear Chair, that we see if any commissioners have questions or concerns related to the draft, so that then we could move forward to deciding whether we want to submit it for as a recommendation to the City Council.
Okay, so thank you. Nick.
I'm with Mr. Estrada. I think that we address this as City Council, whatever the process ends up being. I'm not quite sure, because it's a disconnect from what we thought the process is, but we address it to City Council.
And I am a little disorganized here because, like I said, I was expecting to present to everybody here exactly the finished letter, and then we got edits just yesterday.
Most of us got the letter. I wasn't quite done. But so I'm with Mr. Estrada. I think that the document really does speak for itself, really well written. I commend the ad hoc committee for a very well-structured document that reflects, I think, everything that we've heard and all participation of the San Jose Police. I thank them as well for all their continued help on this. And so I'm supporting Mr. Estrada's comments that we should perhaps move forward after all questions are asked as to whether we should.
Okay, so like I was saying, the letter, I think, pretty much reflects what we heard from the police. It reflects what we heard from the community. The edits, most of them are very minor, except those points that I just finished talking about, which is why I was raising them. Whether the exigent situation will be reported to the independent police auditor. That was one of the specific questions I wanted to ask. And so my impression is we should keep that line in there.
I'm supportive of that.
Okay, quick show of hands. Should we keep, in the case of an exigent situation, should the independent police auditor be notified within 5 days of the situation? Yes?
Yes.
So, okay. And opposed?
I
Okay.
think I'll abstain.
Okay.
The only other comment I have is that maybe that's enough. I think there might be other language about letting city council know, letting the neighborhood commission know. It'd be okay with me if it was just the independent police auditor, but that's the function.
That was my follow-on question.
Oh,
Should
very
we
good.
be notified in case of an exigent situation? So, other than routine demonstrations and flights, practices and so forth, or using all the bomb things, I mean, they use that every day or every month or twice a week or something like that. But in other situations, do we want to be notified?
I would suggest not.
Okay.
I would second that suggestion.
So we do not want to get an email in the middle of the night. We do not want to get an email saying.
I think we have to trust the process, and we have to trust the PD, we have to trust the independent auditor and the city.
Thank you.
You know,
Okay, so we do not.
We have to trust them.
Okay, so we do not have to be in the loop. Okay, fine, thank you. That was the feedback I was looking for. And the other thing is, do we want to review the thing after 9 months and make recommendations before it goes to the public?
I think we can request that we're asked, that we're offered that, but I don't know that we can.
All of these are suggestions. There's
We can put in a polite request.
There's enough conditional clauses in here. Nonetheless, do we want to be in the review this?
I want to see the report.
Yes.
I do.
I think that would be good for both sides, the police department and the community at large.
So
Some
it's all one
people are
side.
offering to give you this information too. So keep that in at 9 months.
Yes.
All show of hands, yes?
Yes.
Okay. I think I get, now let me go public comment here. I have a lot of people want to talk, and then I'm going to ask for a motion for an ad hoc committee to meet again and take all this input in together. So let me ask for, oh, we all talked to everybody already. We got all the public comment. I was about ready to call them again. All done. So, Moses.
I do have one concern, not that we've talked too much about it, but at the end of the 9 months, the type of reporting that we need to get into us here so we can review it. I know that Berkeley has banned the drones from the city proper. Now, would you feel comfortable with that also, as part of not having any other type of interference? I know that the drones, they have designed some that'll go 15,000 feet up into the air, which will interfere with airplanes also, and 100 miles an hour. Those are private drones. But that's still a drone. And even though we can operate within so many feet, if these things are way up high, you won't see them. But they'll be surveilling the area. So, I mean, at the end of the 9 months, would this be part of your recommendations, just not to allow any of these drones in the city proper?
That is not what we're talking about here. You're asking for the police to ban all private
No,
drones?
I'm not doing that, okay? What I'm doing is I'm just asking at the end of a 9 months period, with all your findings that you're going to be giving us for changes and recommendations, that, you know, you could be looking at something like that so we could see it too.
Yeah, let me answer that. I don't think police needs to because it's policy consideration. I think the purpose of the pilot, like with this pilot, was where there were originally 30, commissioners, now there's 20. You don't really know until the end of that time, so asking them to say, would you consider doing that, they're really not going to be able to give you an answer until they actually see the parameters of what they've learned. So I think that's probably not a fair question until they actually look at, what's happening during that period. Can I also, since I left for part of this discussion, is there some kind of a motion or is there a next step that involves a motion here that this go back to the ad hoc committee for more wordsmithing?
That was the request at this point.
Right. But is there a motion?
Not yet. Not yet.
Just a motion. Okay. So let me just clarify the process as you're considering all this. And I know that you're done with public testimony. If it's not clear, what's going to be happening next week is that the police department will be forwarding their recommendations, which you've seen a preview of. to public safety. This commission, it will send a report, your report, whatever your recommendations are, directly to the mayor and council. Once it's agendized, I mean, out of public safety, it may be that they say go back to the drawing board, or it's not ready to go to council. A date may not be assigned yet. So somewhere when you do your document, it'll be prepared and ready to go to the mayor and council on this issue. I'll double check with the attorney's office, but since there's nothing on the horizon yet for council consideration, you're not sending this document directly to public safety because that's not what your purview is. It can be referenced. They can ask for minutes of what motion was taken here and what support potentially could be coming through, or lack of support, or changes, differences in what PD is looking for as well as what you're doing. So that's appropriate. The other observation I wanted to bring as you make your consideration of what your next steps are is that it really, this has been about the process and also assisting PD in getting community response to develop their own recommendations. As Chair Ames has been saying, your recommendations are exactly that when they go to council. Council could say, well, great ideas, we'll pick and choose and make these the part of the pilot process. Or they could say whatever they want to say. So always be clear about the fact that any advisory policy group sends their recommendations and council will consider them as part of their discussion. So it is, as you will learn, and this is really one of the first major recommendations coming out of this commission, besides your budget recommendations that you do on an annual basis. That will have an impact on council and mayor discussion once it gets there. I think that as you consider sending it back to ad hoc for wordsmithing, that there may be a difference in the language that's sent forward from the city manager's office versus your recommendations. And that's just a reality of sometimes it'll be fine to disagree on some of the finer points, just so you're not surprised. So in the discussion that I had with Chair Ames and some other members of the ad hoc committee, there was some difference of opinion on some of the recommendation language, just so you're aware, in the draft. And so do not be surprised if you see some of that. That doesn't mean that the recommendations are vastly different. They're not. But in all fairness, you don't have to agree on everything that you do with the city at times in terms of partnering up. So I wanted to be pragmatic about saying that to you because you're going to follow this closely. Some of you may want to go to the public meeting on the 19th next week, listen to the recommendations and how they're followed up. And so that's part of what you're going to see. But all in all, as has been brought out here, you're very much in agreement on the major points. So that's the process, where it's going to go, no surprises ahead, and I just want to clarify that part before you make your motion, and then just walk into this very clear-eyed.
Before I call on you, I just realized I have not heard from everybody here. So Kathleen, pick on you. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, I don't. I do agree with another comment that was made earlier. I think it was from Nick, that it's, you know, the wording, the report is very well written.
And Nicole?
I hadn't seen this document until tonight, so I'll hold comment.
Let's see. Richard, have you anything?
I thought the ad hoc committee did a great job. One question I did have was for the PD. You know, we've talked about the trial period for 9 months. Just offhand, what is your opinion on that?
we'll entertain we're happy to entertain all the suggestions from here, but people above my pay authority or pay grade that have the authority can comment on those. And which will obviously be seen in the report with all your recommendations. Any comments?
Just that I think that everything that the police department is doing is doing it carefully and are listening to us. They've sure heard a lot from us.
Is that lots 200 and some of people and how many hours of us? Linda, anything?
Yeah, I was getting a little concerned because, we waited for this to come along and then you kept talking and I'm madly trying to figure out where you were.
I know, and I'm sorry.
So I was getting a little confused, but I do think everything was captured that we've been talking about and moving about. And so I think you can just do some level of wordsmithing to take out what we agreed to or put in our meeting.
Is it Dan, do you want anything more? Or?
No, I just think that the amount of content in here covers the feedback that we've heard from the community and well captured it above and beyond what the police department has even looked for. But that's to provide guidance to the city council that would say, here's some stuff you may not have thought of that your community is concerned about. So I think it's a good job.
Terry?
I think I concur with the rest of my commissioners here. Everything I've heard and all the events I've been involved in, you guys have heard what we've been talking about. The ad hoc committee wrote what we needed to be said, and I full agreement with it.
Nothing to add.
Okay, Paul, your turn again.
So I have a difference of opinion regarding the motion that needs to be made tonight. I know that we agreed to, I think, maybe one change to this document. And so for that reason, well, before I say it, let me just say that we spoke when this term first started about the need to produce products to not just me and hear presentations and talk. And so I think we are going to go through this process again related to fresh carts. And so I think that if we produce a document and it is 99% consistent with what we all want, and minor words can change, I think we need to be ready to move forward. And so today, however we want to do it, I think that my motion will be to just have the final change made and submit it as a recommendation with the understanding that it's only a recommendation to the city council, and that some words may change, but the gist, the meat of it will remain the same. So that's what my preference would be. I want people to know that we've done what we said we would and that we were effective in doing it.
I second that motion.
That was a motion, correct?
I don't want to, I know that you wanted to make a motion. What should I do? Should I make my motion now or wait?
Now's the time for a motion.
My motion is exactly what I just said.
So,
I repeat the second.
so the only substantial edits is in case of exigent situations, we won't be notified. It'll just go straight to the independent police auditor and the city council. But all the other reviews, basically it's as is. Minor word edits, you're okay with. Do you want to take any? We'll talk about that.
I think that's what everyone agreed to. I think I abstained on one. I still abstained, but I think we're good.
And you have a second? Any more discussion? Yes.
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
She seconded it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I think we're.
Does it carry unanimously? I'm just curious.
Yes. Was there any objections?
No.
Okay.
We have a letter.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
No, because there's budgets and.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
For
staff
process,
report.
now that you adopted this, I'll need your copy back as as quickly as possible, because I need to submit it to the attorney, because she needs to review it before it's ready for mayor and council. So just be aware, she may have questions that need to be clarified in the language. So the document may not look exactly, if she has questions about either jurisdiction or what we're asserting or whatever the case is, it may change again. So just be aware, but you passed it, and I will need the word process document so I can submit to her as soon as possible.
So, trying to figure out, we are not making very many edits, we're not making any edits other than just removing out one
Just
thing.
that one sentence, one or two sentences.
Flow with the process.
I'm happy. Okay, is there a staff report?
A staff report. You've all done good work, and I'm glad that you're done with this process. Thank you for your agenda.
Yes, thank you. I want to thank you also for all this process here, so thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.